What's up, everyone? Today we're going to discuss something that's a little bit different. I want to talk about extending the life of your Exmark wheels. So if you look at this, the tread on this wheel isn't all that bad. And technically this wheel has no problem whatsoever. It spins. I mean, the bearings could be a little tad on the noisy end, but it's not bad at all. However, on this side, it's super bad. The bearing, some of the ball bearings inside the bearing even started to come out, and the wheel was like bloop, bloop, bloop. But the problem is this: one, it's expensive. Two, at the time of filming this, there's a back order, and the back order, they don't know, at least not my local supplier, and the owner even tried to get him because he works specifically because he buys a lot of equipment. They give him, I want to say, preferential treatment. But even he wasn't able to get a decent price or a decent time frame on there. And if I remember, they're $60 each. So what we are doing is we are extending the life. And how are we going to extend the life? Well, it's right here. It's a bearing. So he went to the store and got these. So I'm not saying these are not the right ones, because they are, but I personally would want to get something a little bit more enclosed. This rubber is just not known for being great, but it is a sealed bearing, so that's what you need, and it's not going to be carrying a whole lot of weight, so you don't really have to worry about that. The ones that carry a lot of weight are usually not ball bearings. These are usually for speed. I'm not a bearing expert, but that's what I've been told. So anyway, we have our bearing. How do we come up with that bearing? Well, let's figure this out. First, a bearing potentially could have the numbers written on there, what type of bearing it is, the number, all that stuff. Let's say it's worn out or super rusty, or you don't even have it. Take a measurement with a caliper of the inside. It's, in my opinion, better to get in a millimeter. I personally only find bearings that have that type of dimension, but that's just me. Same thing goes with seals. But what we end up doing is this: measuring whatever this is going to be, being inserted in. Now, a bearing has an interference fit. Depending on the bearing and how you're going to be using it, in my situation, I want the bearing to slide even or easily on here. We're going to have to clean this up, by the way. Compared to the other way, where on the outside is going to be pressed in. So a bearing you really should only press in a bearing in one area. It's going to slide into another one, another way. So hopefully that makes sense. So what we're going to do? Well, first, I took the wheel off. This is a new bearing, but I took like a punch. And on my vise, you'll see the old one. But you just put it in there, take your punch, slap it out. This is plastic, so you have to be a little careful, but slap it out. Now, once you're done with that, you could take your old bearing and measure with the same caliper the outside. What that's going to do is going to give you a measurement that you need to press it in. You go to the store, find some, go online that fits that same bearing size. I had these, but obviously the center was too big. You're going to want them to fit as snug as possible in the center or whatever area isn't being interference fit. The interference most definitely has to be snug, otherwise this is going to be coming out. So now that we have the knowledge of what we need to do, we take our measurement, we buy them. What do we do next? Next we have to install them. So I already did this one, because I don't think we need to do two of the same thing over and over. Like this one, the one on the bottom actually just completely came apart. But as you can tell, this is the same style bearing. The little rubber piece that kind of seals it is completely gone, which is the reason why I'm sure this didn't work out very well, or why the bearing isn't working out very well. The other side, it's still there. So, as you can tell, I can't really push it. I could, I don't really feel like doing that right now. We are going to take a socket And we need to have the socket that fits exactly on the outside, or whatever side is going to be pressed in or hit in. You never just want to hit a bearing straight up. That is the first way of ruining a good bearing. So never hit it just normally. And if you don't have a socket or you're in a pinch, hit it on the outside or the inside, like I said, however, whatever method or application you're needing. Just make sure whatever side is being pressed on that has that interference fit is where you're hitting. So now, we're simply going to do this. You can also press it in. This is a plastic wheel, so I don't really suspect that's going to be needed. But usually bearings like a good pressing. Now it needs to be flush with the surface, so if the area is a little standoffish, just give it a good whacking. There we go. That's nice now. And for reference, that was a 22 millimeter. It doesn't have to be extended, but now we have it in. We can look at it, and look, it moves nice and quietly. Don't have to worry about anything. So we're pretty much ready to go there. Now stay tuned to the end. I'm going to tell you, this is for wheels, but I'm going to give you a trick about installing bearings. I'm going to get the shaft clean on the where I need to put the wheel. I'm just going to use a wire brush and it will come back. Now that it's on mostly clean, we can go ahead and take our wheel, which also, if you're unaware of how to do the height adjustment, you have to pull up this little lever and the whole thing just comes right out. But while the lever's down, that doesn't move. I actually think that's part of the bearing. I think so, but I'm still going to put it on there. There we go. Nice and secure. Now we're going to take our nut. For this one, I had to actually use a fairly large impact because there's a decent amount of rust. So you shouldn't be using this style of impact, by the way. It's on there tight now. Now, spins nice and smoothly. It's not wobbly. I mean, yeah, the wheel itself could be a little bit more anchored in there, but that's the deck problem and not the wheel problem. But you want to make sure the nut is on there nice and secure, and it is, because you don't want it to come off. You don't want this to spin the nut off either, or the wheel, which it's not. So we have officially extended our life of our wheels. How much does this cost? The owner said it was $1.48 for each bearing, so $3. And I'm charging him not that much to install because, well, I'm making a video, and that's something that at the end saves him money and makes me money. So the tip that I have for you is this. If everything you're working with is metal, and you don't have to worry about having any type of sealing, like piece of rubber on there or anything, perfect example is like a crank bearing. If you need to install one and it's being real difficult, especially like on 2 cycles, sometimes the cast that this bearing has to fit into is super thin. What you can do is you take the bearing, throw it in a freezer for like an hour or two. You can get elaborate. You can use some type of coolant and spray it on there. You can, if you have access to liquid nitrogen, I don't suspect many people do, but you could use that. Freezer works perfectly fine. In addition, you take a little handheld container of propane, you get the mating surface of the bearing where it needs to be pressed in, and get it hot. Not hot where it's going to be damaged, obviously, but just hot. And what you do is you literally can put the bearing in. The cold bearing contracts, the heated whatever you're installing it in expands. As long as you expand it evenly, you don't have to worry about cracking. But it expands a little bit, just enough where it slips in, and you will literally see it slip in. Originally we will seem like it might be even a little bit too loose, and then once the metals equalize, you'll notice that the bearing expanded, the housing, whatever you're using, contracted, and it's now in there pretty good. So that's a little tip. Heat and cool, mainly heat, is going to be a real good friend. And if you're having a hard time taking it off, heat is also your friend at taking it off. So I'm going to go ahead and leave you at that. Quick little video. Save some money. $3 compared to $60, especially if the wheel isn't bad, which this has plenty of life in it, so it's not going to be too much of an issue for me. So I'm going to go ahead and leave you at that. Follow me on Instagram at smallengine101. If you like what you see, definitely keep watching, subscribe, put a thumbs up, that helps you out, definitely helps me out when you do that. And I will see you on the next one. You have a good rest of your day.